let's talk about the library.
Ah, yes.
That's your
My
favourite
love.
bit. Okay, so the library job came up and you got it.
I did.
Now, where was the library situated at that time?
Oh, can I start
and what
right?
services did they offer?
Well, can I start right at the beginning?
You can start right
at the beginning. When George Vasey Stewart brought his settlers here, they weren't a ragtag bunch. They were well educated and probably had some money. So in 1879, they brought their books, and there's a little house round by the Uretara Domain where William Gray, I think, lived, and they established a little library in his house. When that became a little bit too big, and I've forgotten the name of it. The hall that they built in Macmillan Street, what was it? The Orange Hall. They transferred this little library there. But then again, they ran out of room there. So it moved from there to the police station and courthouse. And they had a reading room and a library there. But of course, you know, the township was growing. And mostly it was up that area, that Waterford area around the Domain. And then about 1913, well, prior to that, the Reserves Board had donated land to them on the Uretara Domain, which had been surveyed for houses, of course, and that was going to be the township, but they donated land there. And so they started the Library Management Committee, volunteers, started having soirees and card evenings, all by the light of the full moon, because they had to travel, you know, distances, and they built that library in 1913. Now, Miss Marjorie Hunter, she took over as librarian, and she used to walk from Forafora Road, you know, where the, not the bowling club, the croquet club and the other badminton place are. She used to walk from there up to the Uretara Domain. And then in 1954, when the Memorial Hall was built, the town had moved down to where its present site is, and that was too far out of town. So they decided they'd use the annex where the art gallery is as the library. So council had shelved it and set it up as their council agency. So it was basically for the council agency, but they paid the power, they paid the telephone, and they gave a donation of, I can't remember how much it was now, for books. And the management committee continued there, and that's where I came in. The agency desk was at the back, and we did all our agency business there. And Mrs. Moore, she was the wife of the past chairman of the community of the county council. She was the chairman of the committee, and there was a group of ladies who took turns. The library was only open on an afternoon from, I think it was 1 to 4 or 12 to 4 or something like that. And no children. It was not a place for children. The books were mostly Raymond Chandler kind of mysteries and Elsie Hebner and little romances and that type of thing. Very ho-hum. And the non-fiction was a bit ho-hum too. We used to get a man called John Strang who used to bring his big book van down from Auckland, and the ladies would all flock in there, and they'd choose their style of book. So with the number of committee, you did get a variation, but it was a bit Anyway, that was okay. We also had the county. Now, what do they call it? It was the library thingy from the National Library anyway.
Yes, the library van.
Yes, and we used to get 350 books there, so you got a better quality of books there for fiction and the non-fiction. And with the number of people who were choosing, you did get the variety. So you could guarantee that when the van came, when the books went out on the shelf, by the next couple of days they were practically denuded because everybody flocked into them.
Was it called the National Library?
The National Library, yes. That's right, yeah. But no, it was an interesting time. We gradually improved the quality of our books. The people who belonged to the library paid a subscription, so that's what bought the books. And council did give us, I can't remember how much it was, a grant each year towards books. And I believed in spending it up. In fact, I used to overspend at times just to make the point that, the library was being used, and I often got rapped over the knuckles, but that didn't matter. But that went on for some years, and I was still allowed to be the head of the library, so to speak. And then Nancy Merriman became a councillor, the first woman councillor on the county council, sometime in the late 70s, early 80s. And she recommended that the monies taken from the reserves contributions here in Katikati should be spent here. And she pushed to have a new library built because, that little room was getting overcrowded and it wasn't wonderful. And that's how we got the new library over on reserve land, which got a lot of people's backs up because it was the green space in town. But we built the library. There was a lot of controversy about that because Ian Clark had gone around various libraries and picked the bones out of them and got the ideas, and it's full of all kinds of things like the coloured lights that fall on the floor and all kinds of fancy things that he had. But it was a new library, and it was painted a soft lavender colour, and the front door had a trellis over it on which was grown a Brazilian flame thing, and everybody said it looked like a cattle race. There was a huge amount of controversy over it, but we were very, very fortunate with it. The council staff came out and helped with all the new fittings. Of course, Ian had the say in that, and it was all pink and plum, but that was fine. The lighting was abominable because you couldn't see the shelves, but it had atmosphere, and that was what he was aiming at. And we had Ian Simpson in one office, the traffic officer. We had Graham Lee occasionally in there, the MP. We had a room for the building inspectors. We had an accountancy firm in the back. And we had the library. And there was a tiny little slither of it for the children. But I had a wonderful office with a high desk. That was the council agency office, and that was where I reigned from, with my wonderful volunteer committee, until 1990.
Now, what were the opportunities for professional development in that job?
We had team building exercises and all the rest of it, but when I suggested maybe I should get some library qualifications, I was not exactly turned down, but it was suggested I didn't need them. I was just a secretary, and I had worked well in the office. I loved books. I obviously coped well with the volunteers in the library. I was very fortunate in that I'd established a rapport with the Tauranga Library, with Sue Farrow, who was their head librarian there. The mayors had suggested that libraries should work closely together. So Tauranga, Whakatane, Kawarau, Potiki and Rotorua and ourselves all gathered together, and once every quarter we had a meeting together, and we shared ideas, and I learned a huge amount from those librarians. Sue Farrow in particular was very helpful, so council didn't think I needed professional training because I had all this backup.
Now, can you physically tell us about moving to the new library?
The new library is now the old library.
Yes.
Yeah, right. We had a firm of removal people come and pack the books into boxes, and we had some staff from the council office come and set up the shelves, and then we just moved the books on, and that was it. In my mind, it wasn't a big exercise. It moved and it flowed, and we had a very good county clerk then, and he was very organised. I can't even remember his name. Terrible, isn't it? But he was very, very helpful, and it just flowed. These books and boxes, the shelves were up, and we just put them on and into business.
So the new library is in this building?
Yes.
Yes. This is the new library, isn't it?
Back down there, yes.
There's Moroni Showers.
That was 1987 that was built.
Has it been enlarged since then?
No, it's had all this part of the visitor centre and these offices added on, and
that's what it is.
Yes, and that's what it is. Where you go into the library through those double doors beside the desk there, my office was where the visitor centre office is now. There's a big counter there. Where Sandra's office is was the toilets, and that became my office in the change. I didn't have an office. We didn't even have a lunchroom really. We used to have our in the back room where all the computers are. We used to use that as our room to have our lunch in and things like that. And the building inspectors used to come and spread all their work out there. It was different. And where the as you come through into the library, so we used to have a big desk there, and of course dear Ian Carter had organised those clerestory windows so that the light fell on the desk. It was absolutely dreadful trying to work with this light falling on the desk.
And you built up the children's section there, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, the Lions and the Rotary Club gave us $10,000 for that. And Margie Dicey, who was the remedial reading teacher up at the college, she and I went to Auckland to, I can't remember the name of the firm now, and we had an absolute ball buying children's books. It was like all my Christmases come at once. It was fabulous. But the library had been set up so there was only a little slither of the library for the children, but we gradually moved it and took it over. But when eventually, some years later, I persuaded Rebecca, I can't remember her name, isn't that terrible? Rebecca to come. She had been the school librarian up at Katikati Primary for a little while, and then she went down to the Tauranga Library, and she was getting tired they were living out of Tuapiro then, of driving backwards and forwards, so it didn't take much to persuade her to come and be the children's library, and she was a breath of fresh air. She was a children's librarian. She had initiative, she had innovative ideas, she liked colour, displays. We had a ball. But even prior to her coming, Di Logan was great in that school holiday time. She'd come and we'd have stories and all kinds of fabulous things happen for the children. Like she took the children on a march around the gardens here. She was Fina Cooper on the Land March. Another time we had the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Another time she had Kit Wilson climbing down the brick wall to rescue her as Rapunzel. That was a great time for the children. We used to get the kids coming down from the school, and I noticed they still come, which is wonderful.
What are the main changes you've seen to the library service over your working years?
Oh my goodness. Well, first and foremost, 1999, we wound up the incorporated society that was Katikati Library and handed it over to what was then Western Bay. That meant that they established a manager. By this time, they'd enlarged this part. We had a manager. No, we didn't enlarge this part. We had a manager, Don Reed. We had his secretary. Shirley came, and I moved sideways into the library. We still used the volunteers. We had a turnover of managers and staff and all the rest of it. And we went more into buying our own books. I bought from America, I bought from England. We started joining up with Te Puki to buy. We started getting, what do you call those things?
Magazines, periodicals?
Oh, yes, no, we'd always had magazines, we'd always had periodicals, so that we increased those.
Or reading books?
Yes, talking books we started getting DVDs. We started buying our own large print rather than just relying on the the Lion Society or whatever they were then to send us these. We expanded into all kinds of things. Oh, and we went computer. Oh, that was a big, big thing. We had some volunteers come in to help us load all the stock onto the computer. And of course, we had to learn how to use the Jolly system. It's changed quite considerably from recording people's readings on their little subscriber card. The stock has changed too. It's changed completely now. I don't know quite where they buy from, but they don't buy like we used to buy. We got to the stage at one time that Te Puki and ourselves were buying for the 4 libraries, and we shared the buying. That was okay, but I'd always bought for our people and for Waihi, and you knew what kind of thing they wanted. So, yeah, no, it's changed, totally changed.
So what have been the highlights and maybe the lowlights of your time as a librarian?
Well, the highlight in many ways was the wonderful service I used to have and the rapport I had with my volunteer committee. They were absolutely, I mean, they didn't always agree with me, but nevertheless, they supported me. They were wonderful. Another highlight was establishing the library at Waihi Beach. I was very blessed there to have Stephanie Smith and John Hall, Reverend John Hall, as the mainstays up there. But the community got right behind it with donations of books, and there was a lady, and I can't remember her name, who was the driving force when the hall up there was built and pushed for the library.
Eileen Stevens.
That's it, Eileen. And so we established that library, and the volunteers were marvellous people, the community were great, and that's just taken off and gone. That was only 2 afternoons a week, but that was good. The same couldn't be said about Omokoroa. We tried the same thing there, but our manager's secretary did most of the organising there, and we were sort of cut out of it, which put our noses out a little bit, but never mind. The lowest thing, I think, was when Barbara decided that the volunteers, were not so necessary in the library. That was a bit of a shame. But then when we got to the shared service kind of thing, and the whole layout of the library was changed, and the customers didn't like it, and there was some tension between open air arts requirements and our own. That's when I decided the time had come for me to retire.
When was that?
2011.
Not so long ago.
No.
You had to wear a uniform.
Oh, yeah, that wasn't so bad. They were chosen by a committee in the other office and the manager, and yeah, some of them were not too bad. We started off with a grey suit and a coloured scarf. I remember one dress that we had one year. It was a black and white pattern thing, silky thing on a big basque with a long skirt. Mine was down to my ankle. Shirley cut hers off to above the knee.
But you still wore sparkly.
No sparkles, no. And then we went into floral things, and then the most elegant was a black crepe, a long straight skirt and a jacket. I can't remember what we wore underneath it.
I was told you wore sparkly something underneath.
Oh, no. That was when I went to speak to the Rotary, and they wanted to know about the library, I think it was, or something. My Passionate Life, I think I entitled it. So I turned up in a very straight, button-through librarian's dress and my big glasses, and talked about the library, gave them the background of the library and all about how passionate I was about it. And then I shared my other passion, and I unbuttoned my dress, took it off, and underneath I was in pink sequins and a short pink satin skirt. I was a sweet Adeline. I offered to jump out of their birthday cake. That was a highlight.
Did they enjoy that?
Oh, they did.
I bet they did.
Some of them looked a bit sideways at me because I had been the president's wife at one stage.
Now, have there been any books that you've purchased that have been controversial?
Not really, because I think I'm a little bit on the conservative side, and knowing the customers here, I knew what they wanted and what they didn't want. For a little while, there was some controversy about what's his name, Potter, Harry Potter. Yes,
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. They thought, witches and things. There's some people who didn't like that type of literature for children, but it was so very, very popular, and Rebecca and I decided that's what the kids want, that's what they'll have. But no, there was one little Irish fellow, no, he was a Scotsman, used to come in and say, where are the dirty books? So we used to give them the passionate love stories. But I honestly can't remember any adult books that were really controversial. People would ask us to get stuff if we felt it was a wise purchase for the library, we would buy it. But no, we were pretty run-of-the-mill, I suppose.
What about some memorable customers? You can't get on with everybody.
Memorable customers, right. They were all memorable in their own way.
But the ones that cause angst.
Only this fellow with his dirty books, really. I can't... I had a policy that if a customer came in grumpy, I wouldn't let them leave until I'd made them smile. So that's the way I worked. I had a couple of grumpy staff members. One lady was South African, and she was a real tartar. And the customers didn't like her, and they knew she was on a Monday afternoon, and attendance dropped off on a Monday quite sharply when they realised that. Then she went away on 3 months' leave to Africa. When she came back, and the people sort of started coming back, and I said to her, I can't put you on the desk now, it'll just be shelving. And she took umbrage. Library, we always said people took umbrage. And she left, and she still crosses the road when she sees me, and that was about 30 years ago. But mostly, and I had another staff member down at Mokoroa that I couldn't get on with. I don't think she could accept that I was in charge. But mostly, I think I had a policy of I want people to like me, I want people to like coming here. I could be grumpy. I could be grumpy with the kids, especially with some of the Maori kids that came in and ramped around. And I remember saying to one teacher who brought down his Maori kids, do your kids know how to say please and thank you in Maori? And he said yes. And I said, well, perhaps you could tell them to say it occasionally. But, apart from that, I wanted this to be a place where people could come and relax and feel happy.
Your relationship with the council. You used to have some morning tea with the councillors?
I can remember them coming out here once to something that we'd organised, but they didn't seem particularly interested somehow.
That's probably because it was going well.
Yeah, I think so. They used to come out here and use this room for meetings, and they'd sort of come in and say, oh, is everything all right? But individually, I think I got on quite well with them. We used to have to go into meetings occasionally and report on what was going on. So I had good bosses. I really did. Now I've forgotten. Yeah, Carter. Ross Carter was the best. Barbara's good because she's a trained librarian and she knows. But Ross Carter was good. Everybody said I had him round my little finger, but it wasn't that. It was just that we were on the same page. I sang with his wife. He loved books. He enjoyed people. He enjoyed and appreciated the volunteers, and they appreciated him. So when went for morning teas. He'd take them for morning teas or for lunch. He was there, and it was a happy time. We had some great times with the volunteers. I remember having a potluck dinner here. I suppose there were about a dozen or a dozen and a half of us, and we drank 9 bottles of wine. We had a hilarious time. We really did. They were the great times.
You didn't drive home, did you?
I did. I just about took a pole out outside the library. No, we've had some really great times here.
So what would you consider to have been the most important aspects of your role in the library?
Right, in the library, okay. To ensure that the collection of books was meeting the community's needs, that it provided information, education, and enjoyment, and that the children felt comfortable coming here. And I'm really delighted when I see streams of primary school kids coming down here with their little book bags. I mean, Rebecca started that years ago, and one of the other girls that was here since, Rebecca started up story times for the littlies, and that's at all the other libraries too. And to me, that's the future. So if they're coming in, okay, I know that there's e-books and all that kind of technical stuff, excuse me, but to me, the printed page, you can never be alone with a book, can you? No. And if we served the public in that way and brought them enjoyment and comfort, that's what it was all about.
Now, you would have met many characters in your day. Many. What can you tell me about some of these folks? Some of the ones that are easy, some of the ones that are over the top, some of the ones that drive you nuts.
Oh dear, no, I can't tell you things like that. No,
You should tell.
Well, I can't remember a lot of them, to tell the truth. There's been so many, and
well, some are just such great characters.
Yeah. There was one fellow used to come in. He was reading his way around the library. He started at A, and he was reading A, B, C, D around the library. No, honestly,
I've never heard of anyone doing that.
No, I hadn't either. And I said, what happens if you come to a book you don't like? And he said, well, that doesn't matter, I'll just read it. And he was quite unselective in the way he read.
Maybe he
look, there were so many people. There was one dear old soul used to come in, and she always went for large print murders, the gorier the best. And she always apologised for wanting to read them. Dear old soul. But apart from that, you just took them at face value and treated them as best you could.